Your day is not over just yet.
Woohoo! USA! USA!
We have an action-packed hour for you 6 p.m. drivers.
Would I rather be feared or loved? Easy, both. I want people to be afraid of how much they love me.
Matt Skraby wraps up a full day of live and local sports talk.
And that is the whole problem with aliens. You just can't trust them. Occasionally you meet a nice one, but usually they turn out to be some kind of big lizard.
The Skraby Show starts now on 97.3 The Fan.
Hello and welcome into the Skraby Show for July 15th, 2026. Thank you for joining me. If you'd like to watch the show, you can. You can go to Facebook, 97.3 The Fan. You could also go to the 97.3 The Fan YouTube. The Skraby Show YouTube has all of the Skrabinators in it. So if you want to hang out with the Skrabinators, you can go to @The Skraby Show on YouTube. Please subscribe and like the video. I've been told I need to do that more. So please subscribe to the Skraby Show. Also like the video if you can, please. You can also watch on X @97.3 The Fan SD @Matt Skraby. And then there's a Twitch channel as well, 97.3 The Fan. Although I think there's only one person that I've ever seen comment from the Twitch channel. So if you're on Twitch, let me know. Let me know. All right, we have some different things to talk about tonight. I think we're going to have to go in the Mason Miller direction one more time because I keep thinking about this. I keep getting asked about this, and it's the All-Star break, so we got nothing to talk about from the field, so we're going to talk about Mason Miller again tonight. Also, Curdy McFlirty is on Twitch. Thank you, Curdy, for saying hello. Also, if the Padres traded for Luis Ariz, how would that look? Because it's a complicated situation, and we'll get into it in a little bit. Also, at the end of the show, we have the Daily Gripe. Plus, I don't know if anybody heard about this, but the Padres ball girl was the ball girl for the All-Star game last night, but something really cool and crazy happened to her, and I will tell you about what happened at the end of the show. Joseph's asking, what's the Twitch channel name? I believe it's 97.3 The Fan. That's what I believe it is. All right. So at some point, I'm going to ask everyone, what does selling mean when you're talking about the Padres and the trade deadline? What does that mean? Because I see more and more fans and more fans tell me that they think that the Padres should sell at the deadline. And so I'm going to get into it in just a little bit, but what does selling mean? Does that mean get rid of all of your good players? Does that mean get rid of one player? What does it mean? We'll go over that. But I think we need to start with Nick Pivetta and what we discussed a little bit earlier during Gwen and Chris. Nick Pivetta has a contract clause that, when he's injured, there's certain things that kick in or there's certain decisions that switch from the player to the team. So Dennis Lin wrote in The Athletic that here's the clause, or here's what Dennis Lin wrote. If Pivetta spends 130 consecutive days on the injured list during his current stint, the Padres can void the deal's remaining 2 years and $32 million. To prevent that scenario, Pivetta must return by August 22nd. So he has about 5 weeks to return. Now, if he does return, then he gets the 2 years and $32 million. And Chris and I were talking about, like, what does that buy you on the open market for a free agent? What would, if the Padres were able to save the $16 million per year by having this part of the contract voided, what kind of pitcher do you think that they could acquire for that price? Well, I went and looked, and I'm looking at this year's AAV. So it's not cash or anything like that, but the AAV. And if you're going to pay someone $16 million, strangely enough, no starting pitcher in baseball has an AAV of $16 million. You have someone at 17, and you have someone at 15.4. But if you're going to look at $16 million, these are the guys that you're looking at. Christopher Sanchez is on this list, but he is not the guy you're looking at because he's going to make a lot of money one day. But someone who just got traded today, Lance McCullers, $17 million. Michael Wacha, $17 million. Mitch Keller, $15.4 million. Matthew Boyd, $14.5 million. Jack Flaherty, $17.5 million. And then you have, this hurts, Yu Darvish at $18 million. So those are the type of pitchers that you're going to get if you were to get back the money that Michael Pivetta, I almost called him Michael Pivetta, Nick Pivetta would have cost you, and you can go out and put some money into a starting pitcher. But are we really thinking that those guys are better than Nick Pivetta? Are you willing? I guess, are the Padres willing, if Nick Pivetta does not come back before the 130 days? Was it 30 days? 30 days. So August 22nd, if he doesn't come back, I mean, I guess the Padres could say they're not going to void the contract. They could say, hey, we're going to show you some good faith. And if you are going to come back at some point this year, we'll keep the contract in place. But if they're worried about the future with Nick Pivetta, then I hate to say it this way, but I think the Padres are hoping that he does not come back before August 22nd. If they're thinking that Nick Pivetta is a part of their future, then this is a big problem. But if they don't think Nick Pivetta is a part of the future, then this is kind of a get out of jail free card. Now, I don't necessarily think that the Padres are going to find someone better, but I don't know the status of Nick Pivetta's arm. And it seems like when he was going through free agency a couple seasons or a couple off seasons ago, it seems like a lot of teams were a little concerned about his health and the health of his arm. But I'm going back to something that I read earlier today. The Boston Red Sox extended a qualifying offer of $21.05 million to Nick Pivetta. He officially declined the offer, which he would have had that 1 year and $20 million. So you got to think that the elbow history caused him to try to find a contract that was going to pay him a lot more than just 1 year at $21.05 million. And he found that with the Padres. He found a 4-year, $55 million deal. And in his first year, he was like making just over $1 million or maybe just $1 million. So it worked out for them that way. Now this year, obviously he hasn't pitched since April 12th. And so that money is just kind of being wasted at the moment. Injuries happen. So that's just something that you have to deal with. You're going to pay an injured player. It's just going to be that way. That's just what's going to happen. But do you think that, I guess you could either take that $32 million and put it into one big signing, or you could take that $32 million and spread it out over the rest of the team. I tend to think that the Padres have Nick Pivetta penciled in for their future, but I am a little concerned. The arm has been an issue this year. The arm has not, he has not been anywhere near the same guy he was last year, obviously, because he hasn't had the opportunity to do it. But we also were seeing him struggle a little bit out of the gate, and that might be just some of the first, early part of the year jitters or something like that. But I'm just not sure. Now, on the other side, Joe Musgrove is dealing with a bone-on-bone issue. He said it's not much of a ligament issue right now. It's more of his bones rubbing together, and so he's getting injections for calcification. That worries me a lot more than Nick Pivetta. That worries me a ton, because I can tell you that if Joe Musgrove could pitch and he could be back, I'm sure that he would be in the rotation right now. But a bone-on-bone thing, I am not a doctor, so do not take what I'm about to say as like fact or anything. But a bone-on-bone injury seems like it is a lot worse than we think. So I hope that Joe Musgrove can work through this and get back and be pain-free at some point. I really do. But right now I'm going to have to assume that he's not going to pitch this year. And I think the Padres are probably going into it a little. I mean, they have more information, obviously, but I don't know how you can say, hey, we're going to get this guy back at the end of the year, so we don't need to trade. We don't need to get a starting pitcher in here. There's a ton of different ways things can go. And having both of these guys being injured and the return being a question mark, it does put the Padres in a little bit of a precarious position because they have to make the right call. And if they're going to go the route of moving away from Nick Pivetta, then it's probably got to be sooner rather than later. So there's a lot that is going to happen here in the next 3 weeks before the trade deadline. And we'll say it once, we'll say it a million times. This upcoming 10-game road trip for the Padres, dramatic or not, or like it or not, it's dramatic because they're basically deciding the way that they go in the trade deadline throughout this road trip. They go 8-2. I don't think the Padres are selling. They go 2-8. I think the Padres might sell because once you're so far out of it, you got to start at some point looking towards next year. And there was someone on the chat last night that said something that stuck with me all day. I think it was Jay Munoz on the chat said, there's just too many holes on this team to make a trade, bring a couple guys in, and think that they're all of a sudden World Series contenders. Now, I do think if the superstars start superstarring, Manny's on his way. Fernando needs a little bit more power. Jackson's a little bit on his way. It'll take a lot of pressure off of all of the other supporting cast players. So if those guys start producing, it will help AJ Preller to know what direction he needs to go at the trade deadline. So I'm always looking forward to the trade deadline with AJ Preller because you never really know what's going to happen. But he has his work. This might be his toughest trade deadline since he's taken over the Padres. This might be the toughest one because there's a lot of decisions that you need to make that you're not sure of the outcome. So you're risking and you're hoping and you're taking a chance. And that's not really a comfortable position, at least for me to be in at all. All right. Again, Matt Skraby Show, 97.3 The Fan. We are going to head to break. When we get back, we'll talk more about Mason Miller and give some more. I dove into the numbers a little bit. I talked to Adam Klug earlier about this, and we had a pretty good conversation, so I want to bring it to all of you when we get back here on the Skraby Show, 97.3 The Fan.
Calling all heroes.
back here in the Bill House Studios where we know how on 97.3 The Fan. Matt Skraby Show. You can watch online, YouTube, The Skraby Show, also 97.3 The Fan. And you can also watch on Facebook, 97.3 The Fan. Now, I came into the show today saying I was going to talk about what does selling mean? Because I'm not necessarily against trading certain guys away, but when I see and hear and people tell me they need to sell at the deadline, I don't really know what that means. I think some people mean like you have to sell Xander Bogaerts, you have to sell Manny Machado, try to get some of these contracts out of the way. I don't think either of those guys are going to be in high demand from other teams just because of what their contracts are looking like. But a guy like Mason Miller, if you're going to sell, he is probably one of your, I'm not even going to say one of your, he is your best bet to get a good return immediately. Now, I don't want to trade Mason Miller. I don't think anyone wants to trade Mason Miller. I don't think that the Padres want to trade Mason Miller at all. I think that they would love to keep him for the remainder of his arbitration. I think they would love to have him be their closer for the next 3 years. By the way, I mean, if he gets traded, the Reaper thing is over. Like, that's not cool. I can't have the Reaper situation in the entrance song be done. It's a side note. But I just don't think, like, truly anyone deep down wants to trade Mason Miller. But Adam and I were talking before the show, and he was bringing some of the numbers to my attention about him. And right now, according to his stats, Mason Miller's value is through the roof. It's the highest it's ever been, probably the highest it's ever going to be. Now, we're going to just strictly look at ERA plus. Now, I'm just plucking this stat because it's easy for everyone to understand. 100 ERA plus means that you are average. That means that you're an average player in baseball. Anything above 100 means you're above average. Anything below 100 means you are below average. Mason Miller in his career, 171 ERA plus. That means he's like 70% better than the average player, than the average pitcher. And so when I say that he has the best value he's ever had and probably will ever have, the number that he has for this year in ERA plus is a number I did not even think was possible. But this year, ERA plus, Mason Miller is a 4.58. Now, I told you 100 is average. 4.58 is astronomical. I genuinely did not know that a number could go this high in the ERA plus category. Now, if you look through his career, his rookie year, 23, 112. 24, 159. The combination in 25 between the A's and the Padres, 164. But if you break that down, his A's ERA plus last year, 116, so just above average. But his Padres ERA plus last year, 550, meaning that he turned on a complete other gear that no one knew that he had, and I don't even know if he knew he had it. But a 550 ERA plus is incredible. I can't even put into words how insane it is that he has a 550 ERA plus when he was with the Padres last year. Now this year, as I said, 458. So if you're looking at his numbers, these are the best two numbers that he's ever had in the ERA plus category. And if you go to someone like a Mariano Rivera, a guy who's widely considered in other parts of the country as the best closer of all time, we all know Trevor Hoffman. But if you look at his ERA plus through his career, his overall ERA plus is 205. So that's very good. It's over 100% better than an average player. But the highest that he ever had in any one season was 316. So what Mason Miller is doing right now as a closer is blowing the water, blowing Mariano Rivera out of the water is what I was trying to say. He's not even close. 316, obviously, great ERA plus, but not even close to 458. So we're talking about a player right now in Mason Miller that, strictly looking at the stats, is having one of the best seasons as a closer of all time. And it's not even close. Now let's go look at Trevor Hoffman a little bit. Trevor Hoffman's ERA plus throughout his career, 141. His highest ERA plus throughout his career, 98. That shouldn't surprise anyone. He had 53 saves that year, 265. So again, the numbers that Mason Miller is putting up right now is by far and away the best numbers the Padres have ever seen. By far and away, I genuinely can't say if there's someone who has had a higher ERA plus, but I don't know how. If there is one, it's just one. If I'm looking at Mariano Rivera and his highest season of ERA plus was 316, I don't know that I'm going to find someone who's over 450. It's just pretty incredible how well he's pitching. Now, I think that the Padres, if they do end up trading him, which I do not want to happen, I think the Padres are going to look at their own performance, the players in the record, and how they've underperformed this year from what we thought they were going to do. And I think that their performance so far this year is the driving force behind whether or not the Padres trade Mason Miller. Because if you can't win and you're trying to rebuild, you have to listen for different, and not rebuild. Rebuild is the wrong word. If you're trying to supplement the roster, you got to look at your best asset, and that's Mason Miller. And so if the Padres come out of the break and they win 10 straight, that makes the decision really easy for AJ Preller. Likely you don't trade him at all because your team's on a hot streak. But the team has struggled this year. We've seen it. They finished 48-48 in the first half, and that's not good enough for a wild card spot. So if you go the other way right out of the All-Star break, things I think will speed up a little bit on Mason Miller rumors. I think Mason Miller wants to stay in San Diego. I think the Padres want him, but the poor performance of the team so far this year has forced the Padres into even talking about this. And AJ Preller has said that he is open to anything at this trade deadline. Normally he's the shark and he's circling, but there might be sharks circling him this year. And I'm just hoping that the Padres team takes it out of his hands. Takes it out of his hands so that they don't have to even think about trading Mason Miller. Again, I do not want Mason Miller traded. But we've seen crazier things. And if you listen to Sam Dykstra a little bit earlier as well, you don't trade Leo DeVries last year to trade Mason Miller the next year. Leo DeVries is a generational player, people say. So you don't trade him just to trade away the guy you traded Leo DeVries for the next year. It wouldn't make any sense to me. And as I've said, he's a unicorn. You can't trade unicorns. Let me see if I can. I think this is Labyrinth or Libyrinth. Skraby Miller's value is only when we take a lead into the ninth inning, which you rarely do. Trade him to the Brewers for all their top prospects. I'm not, I don't disagree with that statement. I don't know about trading him to the Brewers, but I don't disagree that his value is only when they take a lead into the ninth inning. But you got to think that they're going to start winning more games. You have to think that, but the reality of that is something different, because all year I've been thinking they're going to start winning. They're going to start going on their win streak. They're going to start pulling away from the third place National League West team. They're going to start pulling away from the bottom of the wild card, and they're going to go up to the fourth or fifth spot in the wild card. But it's just not been that way. And yeah, his value is tied directly to how the Padres play. So if you're not going to trade him this year, you got to think about next year. You still have a team next year. Hopefully, with the whole CBA thing. Okay. Hopefully. All right. Let's see. There's another one. Western Metal says, I don't want Mason wearing another uniform in his career, but he's a guy you can never rule out an offer on. He feels like the best chance to reopen our window depending on what we can get back. Don't disagree with that, Western Metal SD. He probably is the best bargaining chip that you have. Munoz says, what's our team next year? Hopefully there is a team and they're not just sitting at home waiting for the strike or whatever it is to end. All right. That was the Mason Miller follow-up. I think if we're going to talk about Mason Miller trades, then I need to bring both sides, not just my side of not wanting to trade him. I need to bring the other side, which is it could really benefit the team if they did get the right package. All right. Let's go to break. When we get back, what would it be like talking about trades? What would it be like if the Padres traded for Luis Ariz? There's a whole can of worms there. I was talking to a friend about that, so we'll get into that a little bit. And also, the Padres ball girl was at the All-Star game, and something really cool happened. So I'll tell you about that, and then the Daily Grab at the end. 97.3 The Fan. I'm not the biggest music person in the world. I think people know. But I like the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I know that some people don't, and I'm not sure why, but maybe there's something I'm missing here as to why people don't like the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Matt Skraby back with you here in the Bill House Studios, where we know how. All guests on 97.3 The Fan join us on the SDCCU fan hotline. It's not big bank banking, it's better. One more segment for tonight. We got another Skraby Show tomorrow. We got a roundtable replay at 5 p.m. So I'll be coming to you after the replay at 6 p.m. We have the Daily Gripe at the end here. And we also are going to talk about the Padres ball girl, because I told you something cool happened. And I got to say, like, I've gone through phases over the years. I've gone through phases of whether or not I believe in love. And this story made me believe in love again. So I'll share it with all of you. But yeah, me and love has been a very love-hate, no pun intended, relationship. All right. The Padres are not likely to trade for Luis Ariz, but let's say they did. I was having this conversation with someone. Let's say that they did. Where would he play? What would it look like if the Padres traded for Luis Ariz? Do they actually need him, number one? Answer is probably. I know that we had him the last couple of years. I know people didn't really care too much for him too much last year, but he's playing great this year. He's back to the Luis Ariz we know, and so he's going to be on the trade block. The Giants are just too bad. He only has, he only signed a 1-year deal with the Giants, so he's a rental. But what would that look like? Would that look like Jake Cronenworth being returned to San Francisco? Now, I obviously don't know if the Giants want Jake Cronenworth. Would they want Jake Cronenworth? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. He makes a decent amount of money. Not a crazy amount of money, but I will say ever since he came back from the concussion IL, he's been pretty good at the plate. Defensively, he struggled a little bit, but I think he's going to get that under control. But if you don't trade Jake, but you do get Luis Ariz, how does that look? Because I read from some San Francisco reporting that Luis Ariz wants to play second base, and currently he's playing second base at a pretty high level this year. So I think that if you traded for Luis Ariz, you would put him at second base. But if you put him at second base, where does Jake Cronenworth go? Does he go to first? I don't know that that's the best option. You have Gavin Sheets and Ty France who man first base. How would that lineup look with Luis Ariz back at second base? In this hypothetical world that we're talking about right now, I could see the Padres doing this. I could see the Padres bringing in Luis Ariz. There you have your two-hitter again. Hopefully not I don't think it will be the leadoff. Fernando's going to be the leadoff for the rest of time, it seems like. You have Luis Ariz playing second. I say, and I think the Padres would be comfortable with this. I am pretty comfortable with this. I think Gavin Sheets could go to left field on an everyday basis. I mean, sometimes you're going to need a day off, but you put Gavin Sheets for the rest of the season in left field. I think he's shown to us that although he is a lumberer and he's not the fastest guy in the world, he definitely can move, and he can definitely get to certain balls that I didn't think he would be able to. So I wouldn't hate it if Gavin Sheets was the everyday left fielder to keep his bat in the lineup. But where does, what happens with Ty France? So does Jake Cronenworth now go to first base, or does Ty France stay at first base? By the way, I've been seeing a little bit of rumors that Ty France might be a player that people or teams are interested in acquiring, which I love Ty France. He's played great this year. He's played a great first base. He's hit pretty well. So I would think that you have to put Ty France at first base. So you got Gavin Sheets in left field. You got Luis Ariz at second base. You got Ty France at first base. And that means that I think Jake Cronenworth goes to the bench. if, again, this is a hypothetical conversation, I mean, there has been discussion that the Padres could be interested in bringing Luis Ariz back. At this point, I'm not sure that it happens. Reed says, please leave Jake's name out of this convo. Tell me why, Jake. Or not Jake, Reed. Tell me why. Tell me why. Someone, who else? Gonzo says, we threw him to the curb, but I love Ariz. Rod says, Ariz didn't want to leave. Yeah, Ariz did not want to leave. I'm not sure how much money the Padres offered Luis Ariz, but I think he got a pretty good deal with the Giants, and I think that's why he went there. And honestly, like, I don't know that the Padres were. I don't know that the Padres were like heavily involved in bringing Luis Ariz back. It did not seem that way because Luis Ariz got signed really late. I believe he got signed the day that we were doing Fan Fest is when he signed with the Giants. So he signed really late in the process, which tells me there wasn't much interest. And I would think at a certain point, the Padres would be like, hey, you want to come back? And he would say yes. But the Giants ended up offering him $12 million. I don't think the Padres are willing to play $12 million for Luis Ariz. Jesse says Ariz is not the answer. I don't think he's the answer either. He definitely makes you better in the lineup, but I don't think he's the answer either. He's not going to come in and make this team an immediate contender. I mean, it would somewhat be a wasted trade, in my opinion, because Luis Ariz is only a rental. So he's going to be a free agent again at the end of the year. That means you're also going to switch around your entire infield for Luis Ariz. I definitely don't know that you're willing to go that far, but if there is a scenario in which he comes to town, I'm very curious to see what happens with Jake Cronenworth in this whole thing. Rod says Song was in the plans. Yeah, Song's been doing a little bit better. He's been getting better. He's been hitting better. He's been playing great defense. He's been stealing bases. So Sungmoon Song is someone I think that you can possibly look at going forward as someone who's going to help this team. You can count on it. Brian says, rather trade Sheets than France. I agree with that. As much as I love Gavin Sheets, I think that Sheets, if you're looking at the two guys, I think France is a better defender at first base, and I think France is a better hitter. Now, Gavin Sheets might have more power, but when you're talking about average, I think Ty France has put together some better at bats this year. Don't get me wrong, Gavin Sheets has been awesome, and the one thing about Gavin Sheets is as he hits for a low average. Ty France right now is hitting 267. He's got 11 home runs and 815 OPS. So I would rather Ty France than Gavin Sheets, and I wouldn't mind if someone offered or wanted Gavin Sheets in an offer. I don't think that the Padres would turn away from that. Yeah, Gavin Sheets right now, 221. OPS is 748, 14 homers. So Ty France is almost three homers below Gavin Sheets. So maybe that's an option. Let's see. Jesse says, what do you think about Mason Miller and Xander for Lombardo, Jones, Volpe, and a right-handed pitcher? I'm genuinely, Volpe scares me a little bit because Volpe has been up and down, and it doesn't seem like he's figuring it out. I just don't know that you can move Xander Bogaerts' contract. And I don't think the Padres would be interested in paying his contract or some of his contract. Padres have done that where they get a guy and the other team pays the contract just to get the guy out of there. It's just way too much money. And I understand why you would want Xander in there. I mean, Mason Miller is something that sweetens the deal for sure. But I just don't see a team taking on a contract of $25.45 million. Ugh. Every time I look at this, I gotta say it shocks me. It takes my breath away a little bit. because he's making $25.45 million until 2033. That is why you're not going to be able to get rid of the contract. That is why. Because he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He almost has like $175 million left on his contract. If someone, if there is a team out there, I'm telling you right now, if there's a team out there that says we want Xander Bogaerts and we're going to pay his full contract, I don't think the Padres would hesitate. It has nothing to do with Xander Bogaerts. The guy has everything to do with the amount of money he's making for what he's doing on the field. And Joseph says it makes me throw up every time I hear that. Yeah. SD Mike said, I could see if it were like 2031, but it's way too early now. Joseph says, what if it's 50-50? I'm assuming that Padres pay 50, other team pays 50. I just don't think the Padres are in a position where they can just waste money on a player they traded away. I just don't think that is a possibility for this team. Maybe it is. We still don't know with the new ownership and everything. Maybe they come in and they say, hey, AJ, we want this money off of the books. You need to find a way to trade him. I don't know. I'm not sure what they're going to do, but I don't know that you can package a $25.45 million player who is not even close to making or to living up to that sort of payday. Anyway, I thought it was a fun conversation about Luis Arraez. In the end, do I think Luis Arraez is going to be a Padre at the trade deadline? No. Nope. I do not. I don't think that's going to happen. All right, I told you that the Padres ball girl was actually the National League representative for the MLB All-Star Game, and I think that's very cool. I didn't know that they even did that they had certain ball people from games or from teams show up for the All-Star Game, and I have no idea how you qualify for that. But her name is Genevieve Ortega Alves. Her boyfriend, Ethan Klingenberg, they're out in Philadelphia, and they ended up going to the picture area where you walk by this, it has a big wall full of the Red Carpet Show logo. It's one of those things, a picture. I don't even know what to call it. Step and repeat, maybe step and repeat. But they're walking through there, and all of a sudden, Ethan Klingenberg gets down on one knee and proposes to his longtime girlfriend, Genevieve Ortega Alves. And she said yes. And I can't even imagine how nervous Ethan was. And so they asked him after. He said, oh, my God, yeah, I was so scared. But we were all done up. Once we got in the front of the photo opportunity place, I was like, yeah, this is perfect. I just thought, do it now. Say something cute. I didn't want to sound too rehearsed, but I had an idea of what I was going to say, and I just went for it. So, I could actually probably see myself proposing one day and just being complete mess and a ball of nerves. Western Mel says, saw that article on my lunch and smiled. Nice to have a feel-good story right now in a whole sea of despair across the world. That's a good way of putting it. Here's why I believe in love in this story. Because they had been friends for a very, very long time. They're both 28 years old now. But when they were in middle school, they met at Albert Einstein Middle School. They rode the bus together as friends before officially starting their relationship in the 10th grade. Since then, they have both went to college at San Diego Mesa, and they have started their respective careers. Ethan said, quote, we were always good friends and did everything together. And then finally in 10th grade, she was like, oh, my God, just ask me out. So I did. And you know what? We haven't looked back ever since. So you can find more about this story if you would like to. Go to MLB.com or just type in Padres ball girl. But there, I am not just a cold-hearted person. I said I do believe in love after hearing this story. I think things like that are they make me think that my entire dating career has been an aberration from what normal people go through. Well, my daily gripe is I just dropped something on the floor and I don't know what it is, but now I just found it. My daily gripe for today is going to have to do with the speeders on the freeway, because I was driving down to my other job this morning and I was in the fast lane, and I'm not kidding. I was going faster than the speed limit. I was not going at a dangerous speed, and there was a car in front of me, so I couldn't go super fast. What is it with the people that are like going 90 that give you about 2 feet behind you so that, they're tailgating you because they want to go 90 miles an hour. We're already going fast enough. I can't go anywhere. The car in front of them can't go anywhere. They can't go anywhere. It's just like, it's ridiculous. And it makes me angry. It honestly makes me angry when I see these people who want to go 95 miles an hour and they're 2 feet behind me. And I don't know why. I don't do this because I know it can cause bad things, but I don't know why brake checking is such a bad thing. You should not be that close to me on the freeway. It just shouldn't happen. And when I see someone coming up behind me at 90 miles an hour and I can't go anywhere, like I just want to scream. I just want to scream at them and say, what in the world makes you so important that you have to go drive so fast, you have to tailgate me, and you have to cut across lanes and everything like that? And Chris said the other day, I'm going over now, Chris said or maybe a couple weeks ago, that he doesn't like it when he gets on a freeway and someone won't let him in. Well, the reason that no one lets you in anymore is because people try to squeeze in the smallest places in between two cars. Like a car length is not enough room for another car. And so I do want to be, right and put space between me and the car ahead. But if I do that, then two other cars are going to force their way in. I don't know. This really bothered me today. This really, 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 really bothered me today. I am not a bad driver. I go with the flow of traffic. But anyone who does this whole weaving in and out of things and driving 90 miles an hour, I almost said something that I would regret, but I'm not going to say it. You deserve whatever comes to you is what I'll say. So I'll leave everybody with that. I even went a little too far past the show to get that in. Reed says you're turning into Chris. I might be. Rod says I'm perked and currently blocked in and can't get out if I wanted to. That is ridiculous. Rod, just hit her car or something. All right, everybody. Back with you tomorrow. Thanks for listening. Matt Skraby, Skraby Show, 97.3 The Fan.